Hi, my name is Phoenix Romero, and I am a mother of a chronically ill child. I always call myself a career mom. My daughter Mercedes was born with clinical bladder exstrophy, and when she was born, nobody knew what was wrong with her. In fact, the first thing I heard about my daughter was the child has a deformity. There's a lot of things that run through your mind in that minute before somebody clarifies for you. Finally, the doctor that delivered her said, the child has a hernia. It was actually a resident who leaned down and whispered into my ear, no, that is not a hernia. Your daughter's bladder is on the outside of her body, and we're going to let you hold her, and then we're going to take her to the neonatal ICU unit. After Mercedes went into the ICU unit, I was in recovery, and I kept asking why. I took all my prenatal vitamins, I did all the things I was supposed to do, I had great ultrasounds, and never was there any indication that I wasn't having a perfectly healthy, happy child. And I remember that night laying in recovery and the surgeon coming in, and he wheeled up next to my bed, and he started drawing her anatomy on the bed sheet. And I was laying there, and he said, you know, Mommy, it's okay for you to cry. You can cry. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed, and I remember him saying to me, Mommy, we're going to get through this together. Together, we're going to figure this out. Mercedes has had 60 admissions to the hospital, 14 major surgeries, and 3 life-threatening experiences. And I think in the beginning, I knew that she was chronically ill, but I always took solace in thinking she's not life-threatening. But one day, I got a phone call from the school, and they told me that Mercedes was being transported by ambulance to the children's hospital. And when I got there and I met the ambulance, we rushed through the ED with her. We took her into the emergency room. We hooked her up to a bunch of monitors, and it was clear that her heart was beating a bazillion beats a minute, and her blood pressure was 220 over 180. The surgeon was down in the OR, and the ED kept calling down there. Finally, they sent a doctor in. He took one look at Mercedes and raced us to the intensive care unit. Once we got into the intensive care unit, they again hooked her up to a bunch of monitors. And I noticed that the nurse kept hanging around our room. And I knew that Mercedes was seriously, seriously critical. Finally, the surgeon came in and said, Mommy, I don't know what's going on in there. I don't know if she's bleeding internally. I don't know if she ruptured something, but we have to go and do surgery. So we took her down to pre-op and we got her ready for surgery. And just before they were wheeling her away, Mercedes' surgeon took my hands and said, Mommy, I don't know that she's going to make it off the table. She's not stable, but we don't have any other alternatives. And I just need you to know that before we go in. If you've never lived in that moment, you don't understand what it's like. Every minute is a lifetime, and you're sitting in the waiting room for hours upon hours, and you are literally bartering with God for the life of your child. And there is nothing that you would not do. You would give anything in that moment. You would do anything in that moment to save the life of your child. But there is nothing you can do. I sat there that night for 4 hours, and every 30 minutes or so they would call me from the OR, and they would tell me that we are okay for now. She's still not stable. It was finally at about 3 hours that they called me from the OR and told me, we are all stable in here and we're all coming out of this OR together. It was a long hospitalization. We were in for 3 months, and finally we were released. And we were pretty good for a while. We had some just what we refer to as lube and oil changes, where we go in and do a bunch of IV antibiotics, but no surgery, nothing too super serious. It wasn't until Mercedes went into end-stage renal disease and had to start dialysis that we were rehospitalized. We started her on chemotherapy dialysis. About the first year afterwards, her blood pressure started to rise, and it got higher and higher and higher until at one point she was on 7 blood pressure medicines, and the doctors decided that they needed to do what's called a bilateral nephrectomy. So they went in for surgery to remove Mercedes' kidneys to lower her blood pressure. We were in the hospital for approximately 8 weeks. We were doing pretty good the first couple of weeks. About the 3rd week, her blood pressure started to rise, and by week 6, she had a stroke while she was inpatient at the hospital. She didn't suffer any speech loss or any paralysis, but she did suffer some short-term memory loss. And we were there running a bunch of tests for a couple of weeks, several weeks after the stroke. When we made the decision to do the bilateral nephrectomy, we made the decision to do that to prevent Mercedes from having a heart attack or a stroke. It's difficult as a parent when you do everything that you think you can possibly do to prevent things and then they happen anyway. I think that as a parent of a chronically ill child, for me, the most difficult thing was having to accept the fact that I will probably outlive her. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not the cycle of life. You're not supposed to bury your children. It's a difficult time. It's a difficult understanding. It's a difficult realization. But I think once we get through that as chronically ill parents, we realize that every moment that we have with these children is truly a gift. And we should remember to be gracious and enjoy every moment, because in an instant, it can all be gone. I try to remind the people, especially when we're in the hospital, I tell them a lot, at the end of the day, this is just your job and it's my life. And I don't have a partner to pass my patient off to. I can't avoid the phone calls. I don't ever get to go on vacation. And at the end of their day, God willing, they're going to go home to their healthy children and their healthy family, and I never am. Because every day for the rest of my life, I'm going to wrestle with the mortality of my child. So I try to remind them that sometimes it's difficult to be us and difficult to try to be the caregiver and the advocate and the mom and the person who keeps all the doctors together and keeps everybody informed. But I don't think that there's anything that we would rather do. And I think many of us didn't know that we were having special children. But I think that a lot of us share the feeling that we will graciously accept what we have been given. And we understand we don't have it the worst and we don't have it the easiest. One of the things I think that's most difficult for us is that as hard as we plan, as much as we coordinate, and we try to make things happen for our children, or we try to have them lead as normal a life as possible, everything changes in an instant because of their condition, because of an infection that they got. Mercedes was scheduled to go on her Make-A-Wish trip. It took a lot of coordinating, a lot of people were involved, and just within a few days of us getting ready to leave for our Make-A-Wish trip, Mercedes was hospitalized. I'm frantically making phone calls from the hospital room. I'm frantically trying to reorganize things because in an instant, these children, their life is immediately put on hold. And there's nothing else that we can do except walk through it, get them the best health care that we can get, and continue to persevere. You spend a lot of time in the hospital with your chronically ill child when they have a favorite everyone. A favorite housekeeper they want on their floor, a favorite cafeteria worker, a favorite person to transport them from test to test. It becomes their home. Truly, it is their home away from home. There are many times when Mercedes is in the doctor's office at a visit, and the doctor will say, I'm sorry, you've got a really bad infection. We're going to need to hospitalize you. And Mercedes will say, I need to go home first. I need to pack up my bag. I need to bring my favorite animal. All of the things from home she brings to her other home, which is her hospital, which she refers to as my hospital. I think 60 admissions over 22 years, you come to be very familiar with everybody in the environment. You come to have favorite child life specialists. The child life specialists are an amazing facet of the hospital. They truly are the people that get these children through the most difficult tests, the painful tests. They're there to encourage them, to distract them, to hold the hand of mom when mom's tears are streaming down her face, because it is unbearable to watch your child have one more painful test. It is unbearable to see the pain in their eyes and know that there's nothing you can do to change that. There's nothing you can do to make it less painful. The project My Life on Hold, in my eyes, I was sitting home watching reality TV one day. I was cleaning my room and I heard something on reality TV and I thought how profound that was. And I thought, there isn't a lot of reality in television and anymore. So I thought it would be really interesting to follow Mercedes' life and to see what they go through, what an accomplishment things are for children who are chronically ill. So I came to Dean, and Dean also has a chronically ill child, and he had an idea for a show where we talk about many children and many diagnoses. So Dean and I morphed our ideas together, and My Life on Hold was born. I think when we sat down and started talking about it, we decided that we want to create reality TV that will enrich your soul. And we hope that My Life on Hold becomes that for you.